Okay, let's answer these problems from the variables on both sides. That way you can check. And the key is what I want you to always remember is you are wanting to end. So let's take this variable because the variable changes. You got an A and then a K and then an N. So it doesn't matter what the letter is. But what you're always wanting to end up with is that variable equaling something. Either it be a -2 or a -50 or a 0 or a 15. It's going to equal a number. And, not that the variable has to be on the left side. So, I mean, you could have it like at the end 8 equals A or something. You could have that flipped. But I think it takes some confusion out as far as when you're first learning these I've just noticed over time, it's kind of easier to set a goal as far as that you're going to end up with A equals something, okay, or K equals something. And if you keep that goal in mind, it helps you kind of avoid some of the pitfalls of like just having, numbers or even just random things kind of there. Now, one exception to that, and I didn't have any problems on this that way, but there is a possibility of sometimes, like, let's say you have 5a plus 8 and you have 5a, minus 7 or something over here. And that possibility, I want to just point it out here, is if it ever happens where when you go to move this variable over here and you end up having both of them disappear, okay, and you have 8 equals -7, which that's not a true statement. 8 does not equal -7. And the reason why I point that out is that's the only time you're going to have like no letter anymore, and that's if this is the same thing as this, and when you go to move it, they both disappear. When that happens and you have a untrue statement, then there is no solution. And that's not meaning that you can just answer no solution when a problem gets too hard. The only time that happens is when the variables disappear. And what no solution means is that there is nothing you could plug in for A. There's no number in the universe you could plug in and have it come out to be the same thing. Okay? To simplify that is like if I write A plus 2 equals A plus 3. And so when I move the A and I move the A and they disappear, there's no number that you could add 2 to, like a 3, add 2 to it, and it come out the same thing as if you add 3 to it. There's just no number that can do that. So that's what happens when you have everything disappear. And that's going to be very, very rare. In fact, it never happens on this. So, keep that in mind. That's the only time you're going to end up with the variables disappearing. If you have it happen, let's just change this a little bit. A plus 2 equals A plus 2, and you move it, and they disappear, and you end up with a true statement. Well, then that means all solutions. Okay, and what that's saying is if you add the same number to, like, let's say I plug in a 4 here, then it's gonna always come out the same. I could plug in a 4, and 4 plus 2 is going to equal 4 plus 2. I could plug in a 5. 5 plus 2 is going to equal 5 plus 2. So what this means is every number would work when I plug it in. Okay? But the only time, like I said, that happens is if your variable just completely disappears, and that means they got to be the same on both sides. And so, that's not going to happen in these here to where you should end up with the letter equals a number. Okay? So keep that in mind as your main goal. Okay? So in this case, I cannot combine these two things, so let's go ahead and move our variable over. Okay, and so this didn't change. This right here, 5 minus 4 is just 1a, and we don't have to put the 1, that is 1a, and then these disappeared, okay, and we're left with -10. So now what I've done is got my variable over here. Now I want my number over here, which means we need to move this number over. And so all we have left is A, and it's a positive A. And over here, we're going to end up with -7. -10 plus 3 is -7. So keep that goal in mind, and you'll be able to solve these much easier. And I know you're learning it as you go, so you'll want to kind of go back and review that, make sure that's what you're doing. Now, over here, the first step I'm going to do is I can combine something on this side of the fence, and that's these two numbers. I can combine them. Okay, so that's going to be -15, because -7 minus 8 is -15. And now I can move this k over here. Okay, so -2 and -1 is -3k. And over here, I have -15. Okay, and now to get rid of the -3 so that all I have left is k, I'm going to divide it. And I've got k is 5. Okay, negative divided by a negative is positive. All right, over here, can't combine anything. It's just a number. This has a variable. Same thing over here. So we can go ahead and start by moving my variable. And see, this is where I want to make it plus 5n, so it becomes 0. And I'm going to add 5n over here. Do the same thing on this side of the fence. This 16 has not changed yet. This becomes 8n. And this is left with -8. Okay? All you did was get rid of it over here. Now you're going to move the 16. And you're going to have 8n equals 8. Okay, -8 plus 16. And now you just need to get rid of this 8 so that n is 1. And look at that, I planned the perfect amount of space for that. All right, this one I may run out of space. This one's going to be one step first, meaning, okay, before I start moving things, I can, and you're going to want to do that, you're going to want to combine, because otherwise you're having to move the 6 in, and then move the 8 in, and then move the 8, and then the 5. If you can combine on this, you know, either side of the fence here, this fence, I keep saying fence, the equal sign's the fence. If I can combine some stuff, I'm going to do that first. So I'm going to do 6n minus 8n, which is -2n. And I'm going to do 8 plus 15, because I can combine those two things and get 23. 8 plus 15 is a positive 23. Now I can, since I can't combine these, this has a letter, this doesn't, then I can go ahead and start moving my letters. So I get 6n minus 1. I haven't moved that yet. And over here I just have 23. Okay, and now I can move the 1. And so I'm left with 6n equals 24. Got to write smaller if I'm going to fit it. And now I'm going to divide by 6. And n is 4. Okay. A couple more here. Okay. This one doesn't disappear. I'm sorry. So I move this. And see the reason, had this been a positive 3x, this would have disappeared. But since they're both negative, I now have -6x. And I still have my 1. And then over here, I still have 1. Okay. And then I'm going to move this 1. Okay. And this one, okay, as far as, I'm sure there was some questions here, and I apologize, I wasn't sure there was one like this on here. But just so you know, this 0 is a number, okay? So it does have value. So I'm still going to treat this, the variable didn't disappear. So I've still got a variable. And so I'm going to still divide by -6 to get rid of that -6. The only thing is, 0 divided by anything is still going to come out 0. But see, what this last step proves is that you're still going to divide by -6. You're still going to go through that to isolate the variable. And that means the only number that will work to plug in here is 0. And think about that. If this becomes 0, 0 times 3 or -3, you get 1 minus 0, which is 1. Over here, if you get 3 times 0, you get 0 plus 1, which is 1. So 1 equals 1. The only thing that would work to plug in for x and make this true is 0. Okay, but that is a value. So that's not the no solution I was talking about. That's when your variables disappear. Okay, this one is an answer. Okay, so that's a good one to have on here to show you the difference. But I don't think we covered it earlier, but that way you just see it this last. If you got to here and we're stuck, that's fine. That's how you solve the rest of it. Okay. So now let's solve this one. The first thing I'm going to do, though, is combine this 8 and 5 and get 13. Okay. And now I'm going to start my process of moving the variable. Okay. And I'm just going to move this now. Okay. And then I'm going to divide by 7. And r is -4. Okay. Now, these don't always have to come out even. The ones you're going to be doing will, I mean, that's kind of a tip as far as you're learning this. I try to make sure that they come out even. And most of your practice ones do. Just don't get tied in that in real math as you go forward that it always has to come out like to an even answer. I mean, you could still have like a 29 over 7 or something in real everyday math. But in these, that's a good tip is they should be coming out even, okay? So it helps you practice realizing that you're moving the right things the way you're supposed to. So let's do this one. And add 2b. There was nothing to combine. So we get negative 12. That didn't change. This is going to become negative 2b because negative 4 plus 2 is negative 2. These cancel out. That's what we were going for. And now let's move the 12 over so that we have all our numbers over here. We get 16. And now we're going to divide by negative 2. Okay, and don't, one positive, one negative, the whole thing's negative. Okay, first thing I'm going to do with this one, and this one's a little tricky, but you can add 7 in plus 1 in because you get 8 in. Okay. Okay. Then I'm going to, well, hey, I'm glad this one's on here too because this shows, you know, if we're sticking to this left side thing, we can still work this one. Okay. The only thing that we need to do, though, is, okay, we're going to subtract these still. That's negative 5 in. We haven't moved that yet. We can't just forget about the equal sign and forget about this side of the fence. But because there's nothing left, what do we need to replace that with? When you have nothing, you need to put a 0 there. Okay, because then what that tells you to do is still to move your number over here. Okay. Okay, now this looks more like what we need. Okay. So that's how you solve that one. Just for curiosity's sakes, if you had not done this as a variable on the left side, because, you know, I used to teach this, it didn't matter what side, and it doesn't. Just to show you, you would still end up with the same answer. I'm going to move the variable over here and show you that way. Okay, and all I did was just move the variable to the right side and then divide by 5, and you still would have got that n is negative 3. But I think we should stick to, you know, like I said, as you're learning it, it's just easier to always figure that your variable on the left side. That's what happens when everything disappears, though, on this side. You need to replace it with a 0 so that you don't get lost in the problem, and then you can still move your numbers over and solve, okay? All right, so check your answers, and then I'll be putting an announcement on this one so that you know the rest of what today is, okay? Thanks, guys.